Welcome. My name is Dr. Stephen Herod, and welcome to my presentation, Critical Thinking for a Changing World, Education for Operations and the Management Sciences. In this presentation, I will define the field of operations and the education that I believe it encompasses. I will discuss the importance of alignment between the stakeholders in the delivery of education and argue that critical thinking should be a fundamental component of education in the management sciences. I will give examples of the methods I use to pursue alignment and stimulate critical thinking. Subtle shades of meaning in the labels operations research, management science, operations management, decision sciences, and others divide our field. Our field contains many elements of industrial engineering, but it differs from industrial engineering by its emphasis on the management of people as well as processes. The focus of operations is subject to shift as the economy and technology changes. Today, the high visibility topics are supply chain and analytics. Above all, these topics share a common need for critical thinking skills. This graphic summarizes our field, which links technology or processes, mathematical analysis, and the business or economy with the behavioral sciences or the management of people. Even with a clearly defined topical coverage, there is a need to align the objectives and desires of the stakeholders in education. Three fundamental stakeholders may be visualized in education: students, employers, and academia. These stakeholders have differing expectations, and some effort is required to, as best as possible, align these expectations with each other. Students, first, possess career goals that motivate their choice of education program. They are also cognizant of competitive pressures amongst themselves, both during their education and in their later career path. Employers most frequently have short-term goals. Above all, they are seeking specific skills relative to current needs. Employers are also in competition with each other, and thus value education to the extent that it enhances their competitive position. Academia is dominated by longer-term goals and longer time cycles for objectives. Academia seeks to grow the literature of knowledge and to make fundamental contributions to societal improvements. These objectives are achieved through journal publications, which then lead to changes in textbooks, and finally impact society through the students educated. And all of these tasks have completion cycles measured in years. Another quality that defines an outstanding management education is the ability not only to solve a problem, but the ability to also define a problem. As this quote from Dr. Patty stresses, an education that contains only rote training and memorization of methods is insufficient for excellence in business management. I share Dr. Patty's concern. My experiences touch on all three stakeholder roles. In my career, I have been a student, an employer, and an academic. My business experience contains many years developing and marketing a software product, Truckin' Buddy. Later in my career, I established a consulting practice developing and servicing database systems to clients in Massachusetts, Kentucky, Ohio, and other areas. For example, my consulting practice had many clients, and as you look over my list of clients, consider, what did these clients all have in common? The answer simply is really nothing at all. The point being, simply learning a fixed set of methods from a textbook would not have prepared me for successfully serving these clients. Our students in the operations and management sciences need critical thinking skills to prepare them for the variety and challenge of future business problems. Critical thinking may be defined as the following steps: recognize relevant problems, then understand their relative importance and prioritize them, gather information, recognize unstated assumptions and values, comprehend and communicate with accuracy and clarity, interpret data and evaluate arguments, recognize logical relationships between propositions, draw warranted conclusions and generalizations, test those conclusions and generalizations, and then reconstruct, after all this, reconstruct one's presumptions about the context of the firm and their objectives, and finally, then and only then, render accurate judgments about specific courses of action. I apply a variety of methods to align expectations and support critical thinking. First of all, I make a significant effort to know my students. I am a strong advocate of the case study method of teaching. I also include field exercises, homework assignments that require data collection outside the classroom, and visits to manufacturing facilities in my course plans. Here is an example of a student profile card that I compile for every student on the first day of class. I collect personal information to develop a rapport with my students, and like-dislike information to gauge their expectations in the course. Let me share with you a variety of cases and assignments typical of my courses, which I wrote. If you are watching this video, please contact me if you would like copies of these files. Lolly's Restaurant and Rock Island Railroad are case studies. Workflow control is intended to be a set of instructions for an in-class programming exercise, and arrival data collection and factory tour are both field homework assignments. Field visits to manufacturing facilities are a major component of my effort to engage students in thinking outside the textbook. Pictured here is a group visiting the KitchenAid factory in Greenville, Ohio. Pictured here, we are visiting the Airstream factory in Jackson Center, Ohio. Here, I am with a few students at the Volkswagen assembly plant in Dresden, Germany. This was part of our summer study abroad program. Here we are at Freshway Foods in Sydney, Ohio. And finally, here is a social dinner at my home. Social outreach is an important component in understanding student expectations and determining alignment in course delivery. Concluding my presentation on critical thinking, let me repeat that I believe critical thinking is the foundation of a strong, long-lasting education in business management. It is paramount that we move beyond the textbook in educating tomorrow's economic and policy leaders. Our lessons should discourage memorization and encourage problem-solving based on scientific and logical methods. Finally, as educators, we must manage the education process to ensure alignment between students, employers, and academia. We must communicate with stakeholders in the education process to ensure that balance is maintained between stakeholders' sometimes conflicting objectives. With that, I thank you for your time and welcome your questions.